Instagram is really complicated. So for those of you who are watching live on Facebook and YouTube, I am your host, Ryan N. Jenkins, who I am extremely, extremely excited about this episode we're about to have here. So hold on, I'm clicking go live on Instagram. So welcome to hold on. Got to put my banners to be all sophisticated. The Crown by Michelle podcast, which you can access them on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Within 24 hours, I will upload it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeart, Spotify, Podcast Index. What's going on with me now? Those of you don't know, my next picture book is coming up. So it's out now. Like you can go on Amazon, you can go on Barnes & Noble. I tried to see if it was on other websites. It's not up yet. It's our love letter to our boys. It is literally a poem that I wrote and Naima Whitted illustrated. She is a freshman in college. She illustrated the illustrations. So please order your books. But I'm going to get into our guest right now. I told her this is the equivalent to, I feel like, me talking to Mary J. Blige. And for those of you who are book girlies, who love reading, who are teachers, you understand we look at authors as rock stars. So it is a blessing to have any author who's like, yeah, I'll get on your podcast. Like no questions asked. So this is like super dope that, I told her it took me a minute to realize when exactly I connected with her books. So I came across her books. I had her books on my shelf for a minute. Because I'm one of those people, I'll see an awesome cover and just order it and don't even read the back of it. Just because I see a beautiful black face, I'm ordering a book. Matter of fact, I got a new book today. I need to stop ordering. I have a problem. I ordered this.
Don't stop.
Yeah. So, so I ordered this. Like I need another book, but I don't care what y'all have to say. But so I finally read the books this past summer. I read Doughboys first because I wanted to read more books that reach to my boys. For those who don't know, I will put up the banner real quick. I have an all Black author book drop that I do that is year round. Pretty much I take donations from people. I contact authors like Paula and they give me one book. Unlike Paula was the first, and I need every rest of y'all to follow suit. She sent me boxes, like 2 big boxes of books. And it was truly a blessing to me. So what it is when people reach out to me about community events, I go to these events and it amazes me the looks on their faces, Paula, when I say, oh, these books are free. What? I'm like, yeah, if somebody donated to me, I want you to have it. Because the reality is there is an attack on Black literature. I'll admit when I started this giveaway, that wasn't my thinking behind it, but now more so it is to make sure kids have access to our work. So I want you to briefly introduce yourself, like where you're from, when you're not writing, what are you doing? I read that you used to be a cheer coach.
Yes. I do all the things. I do too much. Like that's really, my name is Paula, do too much, Chase, honestly. I think it's partly because I'm type A and partly because I really do, when I'm passionate about something, I give it my all, which is why I'm pretty intentional about the things that I do. So I am from Annapolis, Maryland. I'm an Annapolis native. So I don't quite fit in the DMV that everybody's talking about because the DMV is, the District of Columbia and, the bedroom communities of DC and Virginia. And then there's Baltimore. I am between both of them. So, but I have love for both of my areas and all of my books end up being fictional versions of those areas. I have a fictional version of every single of DC, Annapolis, and my book coming out in September is a fictional version of Baltimore. So yeah, I'm kind of doer of all things. I am an association executive in my day job, but writing books is where my heart is. Really repping for Black youth, especially Black suburbanites, especially Black teens who I feel are caught in the middle between traditional middle grade and traditional young adult. So I have like a lot of soapboxes that I try to stand on at once, but all of those things, inform my writing.
So my first question for you is, when did you realize this is what I do? This is my heartbeat. Writing is my thing. When did it hit you?
I've always been a writer. It's always been the best way for me to convey how I feel.
Mhm.
So even as a kid, when we would be tasked with writing stories in class, certainly that I excelled in it. I did do the school newspaper, and I actually went to college. My degree is in communications, and I initially wanted to be a journalist.
Me
And
too.
then my first year of college, it just didn't resonate. So I
Mhm.
ended up getting into public relations. I ended up focusing on public relations, which I kind of dig because it allows me to be a lot of different things.
Mhm.
So being a writer is it's just my strongest talent, it's my strongest skill. So knowing that I was a writer was just, it was just a part of me. Knowing when I wanted to write fiction, that's a different story.
Okay.
That's a
So
different story.
so you say you always been a writer. So what age do you remember what age you started writing?
Probably as long as once I was taught to write. Like my cousin and I used to spend time together by sitting side by side and reading books.
Mhm.
So I've always been a voracious reader. I used to Sundays, me and my mom would, read books all Sunday while my dad was, playing football or watching football because I'm a sports fan now, but then, I was completely a bookworm. So really all of those things just always in elementary school, I don't remember anything that sticks out in my mind like, oh, I remember I wrote this story because I was always writing.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. So you mentioned how writing pretty much, I'm assuming, like nonfiction, and then you said fiction was a different story. So when did you discover that you either wanted to or you liked writing fiction?
So the fiction thing is interesting. It really did. I was a part of this company that it was a technology company, and I was laid off.
Mhm.
So while I was taking this time off, and you never really tap into your full self while you're working. So sometimes that's why on vacation and things like that, you get that opportunity to really kind of tap into your thoughts that don't get a chance to get in the forefront. And during that time, while I was, still receiving severance and I wasn't really yet looking for a job because I was honestly still mourning the fact that I had been laid off in the first place.
Mhm.
And one day I just woke up with the characters in my head for So Not the Drama. That was my very first young adult book. And I just began to listen to what they were saying to me, to the story that I wanted to tell. And I realized that story was something that I hadn't seen on the market because it was about a Black suburban girl like me who grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, but went to predominantly white schools.
Mhm.
And just realizing that there was such a void when it came to depicting that part of the Black experience.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. So I'll admit that is the one book I told her I need to go back and read. I remember it in my classroom library. I remember it in my classroom library. So even though I want to dive into these books, I do want to know because you do have what is called, I'm a self-published author. You're traditionally published. So how did you get to the point that you were able to be published? Like what was the journey like from that point?
Now, remember, I said that my middle name is Do Too Much. So when I decide that I want to do something, it is a rabbit hole of massive proportions. And
Okay.
when I when I finished the book, and I did finish it, I didn't start looking for how do I get published. I just wanted to tell the story,
Okay.
and I did. I finished the book, and then after that, I was like, okay, well, how does this work? And at the time there was this book that had like a directory of agents in it, and I looked through that, and at that time, this was probably 2006. At that time, there really weren't that many agents listed in there that did children's literature.
Mm.
So I queried every single one of them, and that's how I found my agent, and I let her take it from there. I never really thought at that time about self-publishing because it was new to me. You know, like I didn't really have the framework. All I knew was traditional publishing at the time. And so that's why I chose that route. It wasn't even like I had to do a conscious choice between the two. I only knew about traditional publishing, and I didn't become aware of how big self-publishing and the options there were until after I'd already taken that route.
So then my next question for you is, what was the time frame from you contacting? Do you remember the time frame it was from you contacting the agent and you getting picked up by her?
I don't really remember exactly. What I remember about that journey was there was one other agency who was interested in So Not the Drama at the time. And she seemed really interested. Mm-hmm. And then she came back to me and said, she said, I let my daughter read your book. And she said she thought that you were trying too hard to be hip. And I was like, girl, okay. So first of all, that is the first time that I realized truly what it means to have other people be culture vultures. For you to come in and tell me that I'm trying to be hip was like the biggest insult. So that's why she passed on me. I had to tell that story. Now let me see how long did it take after the agent who actually liked me. I feel like it actually was probably 6 months or more. And that was because my agent, she liked the work, and she had some comments on how to make it stronger. And she actually gave me 2 reads, like, hey, why don't you work on this and then let me see it again. And I did. And I think it was on her 3rd read that she was like, okay, this is, I can represent this. I really love this. So I feel like it was at least 6 months. It was not a fast turnaround at all.
Okay. But I'll be honest with you, I think 6 months is a fast turnaround. That's just me. I know people,
it could have been longer. That's been 17 years.
Yeah. I remember when I first had that book, I was at my first middle school I taught at here in Columbia, South Carolina. I remember teaching there around 2007.
Okay. And that's when it came out in 2007.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where that was something I toyed with. And then one thing I want to talk to anyone who's watching this who seeks to be published, you just have to figure out which route works best for you. I think there's more information out there about being self-published.
Absolutely.
I'll admit, being traditionally published, the biggest advantage is money, as far as they pay for everything versus self-published. I got to pay for everything. I have to pay for the marketing. I have to pay for the editors. Like, everything is coming out of my pocket. Versus traditionally published, if I'm not mistaken, they give you an advance, but they take that money and their money is to do whatever they need to get the book out there, put it on the shelves, and
I want to, there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions about traditionally published authors, and the fact that they do everything. It depends on the publisher.
Okay.
I have been with my first set of books was from Kensington. My second set of books were from HarperCollins. The imprint was Green Willow. And now my current books are with Wednesday Books, which is an imprint of Macmillan.
Okay.
So, and my experience has been different every single time in terms of the marketing and distribution that they give. Yes, they do. But for people to think that traditionally published authors do not have to grind almost as hard as independently published authors is just not true. I mean, I can tell you it's just not true. But yes, I have a bigger machine behind me for distribution, 100%.
Yeah. And definitely a bigger team too. So,
yes.
And that's the thing I'm still developing. Like right now for my poetry books, I have one particular editor. For my fiction book that I'm working on now, and hopefully me and her will continue to work together. I have an editor. It took me a while to find an editor for that book. But I finally found one where I feel like she gets me and we get each other. So it's one of those things where it can be doable. But one thing I don't want people to think is one is better than the other. And this is a matter of how quick you want to get your work out there.
Yeah.
I know for me, I toyed with finding because I remember, who was it? I remember being on a IG live. I wasn't on the live, but I was watching live. It was like Angie Thomas and Nick Stone. And they were talking about, like, just go in the authors that you read, and they list their literary agents sometimes on their books, on their websites. So and then they even referred me to other websites that will show you all these people who are literary agents. Because again, it's not like you can send your book off to a publisher. You have to find a literary agent who will shop your book around to see.
And authors are very willing to tell you who their agent is, because, it's, knowledge is power. My agent is Jennifer Carlson, and she's with Dunal Carlson Lerner Agency. Now, someone was on Threads, and they were looking for recommendations for who does children's, and I recommended Jen, and then she came back and said, "Oh, she's not taking submissions anymore." So, but yeah, I'm always willing to share knowledge. I think it's important. I think it's also important for people to, like you said, to not knock one over the other. Like, a lot of people, I feel like traditional publishing keeps getting knocked because people are like, "Oh, you lose control over your book," and and I'm like, that's not really been my experience.
Okay,
maybe some people do, but that's not been my experience. All of my publishers have been very willing to acknowledge that it is my intellectual property. I know it best. My editor's job is to bring out the best in me. But, it's always been she, but she usually, she's not forcing it. She's just like, here's what I think would make this stronger.
Yeah. And I definitely believe the game has changed significantly. Like, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Aisha Curry has now a publisher. She's linked up with a publishing company. She was actually on the Sherry Show promoting her and one of her new authors.
Okay.
I forgot the name of the book. I got to do better with names. But I know it's a spooky story based in Jamaica.
Okay.
So once I go through here, I will pull it up for y'all. But it was like, okay, it's more people out there trying to get our voices out there and to make sure we get our books out there so people can read. So let's jump into these books. So what's so crazy is I read Doughboys first. And then somehow I took a break and then went back and read So Done. And because So Done is before Doughboys, I went back and reread Doughboys because it was like, I feel like I'm missing certain pieces.
Yeah.
So to give y'all a brief synopsis, what was the name of the area they were from?
They were from Del Rio Bay, but the neighborhood they lived in was called the Cove.
The Cove. Okay. So when you go back to So Done, and let me go back to So Done, because So Done opens it up and you meet all these best friends. And what I love about the dynamic of this series that you had, it was always two best friends who are going through that middle period that middle school kids go through, where somebody is changing and the other person didn't know how to accept the change. Like, I realized that was the synopsis, the same thematic rundown or conflict with all three books. All of them decided, you know what, I'm not the same person anymore. And it was a matter of, are we going to be accepting of this person changing? So when you look at Tay and Jamila, like, Tay got on my nerves at first, but I understood more Tay once you got to know her father, who was straight up trifling. And for those of you who read the book and you don't want any spoiler alerts and maybe you want to tune out, but I won't give y'all too much. But I guess what I loved about Jamila is how she just got this assertiveness about herself. Like, no, I'm not. I don't know when exactly she decided, you know what, I'm not going to let you call me the same nickname anymore. I'm going to be who I am, and I don't have to be your tag along. And I love that about her. So when did that book come out, and when did that book come to you? Like, when those characters, because I definitely feel what you're saying as an author, how characters will come in your head, whether it's dreams or whatever, and just sit with you until you get that out your head.
So let me give you a little bit of background, because you might not know this because you didn't read So Not the Drama.
Okay.
So Not the Drama, which is my very first young adult book, had Jamila's sister in it. She was she was one of the main characters in it.
Which is why I definitely need to read it now, because I loved her older sister.
Yes. So
and I was wondering what happened to the older sister, because she's away in okay.
so that is her older sister. And and there's 7 years between So Not the Drama and So Done. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like it was intentional. Basically, I went through a 7-year dry spell, super, super dry spell, where I just, was lifing and was unable to author and really thought that I was finished. And okay, I guess, I had my run. I did 5 books. That was cool. Mm-hmm. And someone said, I think that your voice is really more middle grade than it is young adult. Mm. And they used to call my young adult sweet YA. So I'm like, okay, all right. I said, I really would prefer to write for characters that are already driving and have a little more independence, but okay. So, I sat with that. I didn't intentionally try to write a book. I just kind of sat with that. And then I thought about, oh, you know what? I really still love my characters from the Del Rio Bay series. I wonder what I could, who I could revisit. And then I thought, oh, Tay, there's a younger sister there, and let's dive into that. And so that's where it came from. Mm. But I didn't just want it to be any kind of tagging on to the fact that she was a little sister. As you said, most people wouldn't know, they wouldn't care because the books are so far apart.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tap into the fact that what would it feel like if you were, a child of 3, and then your sister, got sent away for reasons, but she got, sent to live with your aunt. And now you're in this situation where you really want to escape too. And so that's where it came from. I wanted to explore her feeling left behind, and not just left behind in general, but left behind because she's in a situation where she really, is afraid and wants to get out of it.
Yeah. And that was, I think, the biggest burden of reading that book, because it took a minute for her to finally admit what was going on with her. And my heart, and I remember, and sadly, I have a huge problem with recording content in my phone, but posting it almost 2 years later. Not that extreme, but still. But I just remember recording a video just saying how if you were in a situation like Jamila, you need to fess up. Like the fact that she felt locked in and imprisoned because she was afraid of what her father would do. She was afraid. Because that dynamic mentioned up, but I hope I'm not going back and forth and jumping around. I loved how the father was with his kids. I loved how he was, not only was he a father to them, but he was a father to the neighborhood. Yes. And he looked out for people. Like I remember Simp and Rolly feeling some type of way about him because they were the lookout boys, but they had to look out for him because they didn't want to, renege on their promise to the coach, which we'll get into that in a second, y'all. That book alone, we'll get to that in a second. But it's just, I love the dynamic of the father and just how he looked out for his neighborhood. And yeah, we have some bad things happening here, but he was not accepting of it. And he wanted the best for his kids. All the kids were involved in something to really take them out of their element.
I'm really glad that you said that. I really want to make sure that people understand this, because I feel like it's tough when people like, what are your books about? At the heart of it, my books are about friendships. Mm-hmm. That is it. That's what my books are about. What can I tell you? But my books also cover what I consider taboo or very tough topics for kids, but it does it in a way, as having read them, it does it in a way where that's not the point of the book, right? No. Like her secret, you don't even find out until the end. Her secret is about navigating this friendship. But I want people to understand that, young people live in the same world we live in. When we shield them from certain topics, we are erasing the experience of kids who are actually going through that. And I write about things that, I want to be both a mirror and a window for kids. I want kids who have no idea what this type of experience is like to be like, oh, and have some empathy. And I want kids who are going through it to feel like they are seen and heard. And hopefully, if they are going through something, will get the courage to tell somebody.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Being a mirror and a window. That is so dope. So And I immediately go back to this graphic. I'll never forget my former media specialist. We used to work together at school, and she was trying to show us as teachers the number of stories that were being told, not by us, but by other people about us. And she was sharing the image how someone of color they're looking into a broken mirror because you can't accurately depict our stories, but yet you're writing them. And it's just, I just love the whole dynamic. So Done is what introduces you into the Cove, into the crew, and that's where you meet Rolly, and you meet, which, if I'm not mistaken, Tay had like Rolly at first, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, when she first could, and that's why I hate. I wouldn't say, I don't want to use hate as a strong word, but I knew Jamila was perfect for Rolly. But because Tay was already talking to Rolly, Jamila felt she knew Tay would pop off.
Yes.
Like, you talking to my man? And then not to give them some way to give away, then you end up seeing Simp and Rolly Simp and Tay liking each other, which that was obvious. Like, to me, they were two of a kind. So
yes, nobody clutch your pearls. They are 13 years old. Yes, they are dealing with interpersonal relationships with each other, as young kids do. Again, you want to be able to, my books aren't to teach a kid a lesson. Sorry for anybody who expects that for it to be it. I want my stories to provoke something from the reader. And honestly, you have to be really honest when you're talking to kids because they don't want to be preached to. And so showing those relationships and showing that dynamic is part of that, because you see that Tay really, even if she liked Simp a little bit, she couldn't say it because she already had feelings about him one way or another, or putting him down. So to go back on that, took a lot for her to edit.
Exactly. It's like, and like one thing I realized more and more, kids go through different dynamics. Like, I'll never forget when my cousins, who are like my nieces, read the novel that will be debuting in November. They're like, Ryan, these kids are grown. I said, sadly, I experienced that on a middle school level, some of these things. And it wasn't like they were doing sexual things, but it was the kissing and, oh yeah, he talked about how big her butt was. There are middle school kids talking about that. Yes. I taught them for 19 years. Y'all will be surprised at the stories. Like, I will never forget, because you learn things and you hear things, and when you're older, you don't realize what you're hearing it when you're hearing it. So there was this term that came out saying proposing. So I finally cornered one of my girls, because I have a mentoring group, and I went to the girls and said, what is this proposing thing? Oh, Miss Jenkins, that means the girl went down on the guy. I said, what? So the person who was associated with this was like a 6th or a 7th grader. So me and my coworker cornered her and was like, so what's this we hear about you proposing? And she immediately got this face. So we had to have a conversation. Ma'am, this is not what we do. And this is why we don't do that. And some people would not want us to have those conversations, but sadly, some parents are too naive to have these conversations with their kids. Sadly, I have gotten in trouble as a teacher when they found out I had conversations. But most of my students admitted to me, Ms. Jenkins, I'm so glad you taught us about that, because we don't hear that from our parents and we don't know. And they don't. And these kids are, and especially even now with them having access to smartphones, they need to have conversations with you. They need to have conversations with you. So Doughboys tug at my heart. I like Turning Point, but Doughboys really tugged at my heart, maybe because I have a boy.
Okay.
I have a son. So for those of you who are not read Doughboys, now you're going to another set of best friends. You have Simp and you have Rolly. They both play basketball for the Routers, if I'm not mistaken. And they're equivalent to what we would call AAU ball, but it's in the neighborhood. But come to find out, they don't run drugs yet, but Simp wants to run drugs for the coach. It's a cover-up operation where they're the lookout and whatnot. But Rolly is getting to the point, he's a gifted musician, he plays drums, and he has an opportunity to try out for a famous band in the area. And he plays ball, as I articulated in my video earlier. He plays it because he can play, but his heart is not really in it. Simp can play, but Simp is in it because he's trying to get clout with the coach and move up in ranks. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So what got me about Simp's character, Simp is not, and that's the reason why Tate wasn't feeling Simp at first, because Simp, they call Simp because they think Simp is stupid.
Yes.
And Simp is not stupid. Simp just doesn't care. And he reminds me of some students I've had who, because they didn't care about school or they were not intrigued by school, they didn't push themselves intellectually. They weren't trying to do, they weren't even, I remember one boy being super smart. He failed, I know, twice. He said, because the work is not hard, machine. I said, well, at least get a D. You don't have to fail. Like the mind.
But Ryan, another point though with Simp, let's not discount the fact that he also does it because remember his mom and remember.
I was going to get to that.
So yeah, so I mean, there is a need there. There is a financial need that he's trying to fill in that house as well.
And I was going to get to that. And my thing was, until they assume that he's dumb because he's dumb, but the reality is he's focused on other matters. And
yes.
And that's the point I wanted to get to. His mom, who, oh my gosh, she made me so mad. I get mom is struggling financially, but when you get to the point that you know your son is hustling and he's 13, like it's hard for me to fathom that level of poverty or that level of struggle. That's hard for me to struggle.
And she works. You know, his mom works. She has a job.
She has a job, but there were times she would come to him.
Yes.
For money. And then remember that one scene, which that's when I really wanted to punch in her face. When he went to go pick up the baby from the babysitter and the babysitter admitted she hadn't paid. And he just gave her mom some money. And it's just like, Mom, what are you, I get you're struggling, but what are you doing with the money that he does give you? And the fact that he had hiding places in the house where he would move the money. So just in case she would try to kind of find it.
Yes. Like, well, one thing I'm going to do with my characters is I'm going to make them messy. I love a good messy parent. I love a good messy kid, you know, because I think that it makes, you know, it really drives the story. It drives the story. It would be great, you know, to make all the parents one way and role models, if that's the thing. But I love me a good messy parent.
Oh yeah, so it was like, because when you're dealing with Sodan, you got Tay's father, who he was like 14 or 15 when he had her.
Yeah, I think 15.
Yeah, he was living at home with his mom, who she admitted, I got to parent you and Tay. That's not fair to her. But then her grandmother was I loved her grandmother. Like her grandmother tried to make sure, you know what, we're not gonna make the same mistake we did, you know, with my son. But you could tell she was carrying that burden. But then when you had, even with Simp and Rolly's grandmother was funny how, because I remember when he wanted to play for the band and she was just like, you want to play that type of music? Like that's not, Jesus would not be. It's like, Mom, I need you to chill out. And then just how on the opposite, you have Simp's mom, who her way of frying bacon in the pan with a piece of toast was cooking breakfast for him. And he knew she wanted something.
Yes.
And I'm trying not to give the whole book away, but what she asked for in that scene, it was like, Mom, you already got one dude hustling for you. Now you're trying to stop. And so the role he takes at the end, where he finally goes to the coach and tells him, you know, about his younger brother, that melted my heart with Simp. It was like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. I can work with that. But what happens to Rolly it in, which I'm not going to give that away. I was like, no. So it's one of those things where I like how it wasn't a picture perfect ending with the books. It was different glimpses of it. And it was so many dynamics.
And I had to give myself permission, you know, to do that with these books, honestly. I think that what do we call our generation, the afternoon school special or whatever, afternoon special.
Yeah.
I think those books had, I guess they had their place, but also looking back now as an adult, I can honestly say that maybe some of the challenges that we have interacting as adults is because too many people believe that is what the world was like. Those afternoon specials is what the world was like, and that everything would tie up and be happy at the end. I want my books to always end with hope, 100%. But I also, you don't, at the end of the book, you don't always end up where the situation is completely resolved or where everything is bright and shiny, but there's always hope.
Yeah. And I remember, who was it? Sharon Draper came to my school. I don't remember what year that was, but that was the question the kids kept asking, like, why did you if those of you who read Tears of a Tiger, it was not, I want to say all her books are not in, maybe Forged by Fire, but she admitted, because that's not real life. Yeah. And she says our books need to mirror real life. Now everybody has the fairy tale happy ending. Yeah. Nevertheless, it leaves you questioning, and hope you leave you with lessons to make you think about your decision making. Yes. And to make better choices. So, and that was definitely one of those things where all of these books definitely did that. And it definitely, and I've seen it where, and I've worked with kids for so many years, and you see the kids who, well, she doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And it's like, is it really she doesn't want to be your friend, or she's embracing certain things that causes her to meet with other people? It's not that she's kicking you to the curb. She just wants to be around other people, or she wants to experience other things that you don't want to. Yeah. And that is definitely the dynamic in all of these books, definitely with Simp and Rolly, because it was at one point Rolly was trying to juggle basketball practice and being late, and then practicing with his teacher for this drum solo he was going for. And the fact that he felt the need not to tell the truth and be honest, it weighed on him heavy, Yeah. So it was just crazy to me. So,
and that's the other thing too that I love, it's always going to be an element of my books, is that they're always going to be engaged in something. There's always going to be a sport or church or theater. There's always going to be something, because again, I want to make sure that readers understand that life can still happen in the midst of the drama.
Yes, because all of them were involved in, if not all of them, most of them were involved in what's called TAG. It was a talent and gifted program. And that's how they were able to meet with certain people and whatnot. And then not telling you what to write, but there were two characters you introduced, and I think it was Doughboys. They were the new kids to the neighborhood. I don't remember.
They were twins.
Yes, the twins. I would love, because I felt like there was something more to their story, and that's just me overthinking. Yeah. So just them having their own book.
I will certainly let my editor over at Green Willow know. Well, there might be another book there, but I have to finish out this contract with Macmillan first.
Got you. So when you get to Turning Point, oh my gosh. So there were so many dynamics there, and I keep going back to my notes because I don't want to mix up names.
So I can have all my babies with me.
Yes. So you have Rashida, who is going off to dance camp with Jamila. Jamila is a natural dancer.
Mo went to dance camp.
That is right. Mo went to dance camp with Jamila, and Jamila is, to me, I perceived as a natural dancer. Like, it was natural for her. Mo was thicker, and she felt like because of that, they came at her. Like, Mo, I felt like had a false, I don't know if it's a false confidence by herself, but she was not used to being corrected. And she wasn't sure she was being corrected because she was Black, or she was being corrected because she needed to learn. And maybe, did I misinterpret that? Or
you didn't, but let me back up for a second, just so that people also have a little bit of context. The now, if you look at the cover, I feel like they depicted this really well. So when we say she's a little thicker, we just mean she built like, you know, a lot of black girls. Like she not, you know,
Oh
so
yeah,
she had thighs. And then this is so done where this would be
Jamila.
Jamila. And so, you know, her nickname is Bean. So she's skinny. She's so okay. So that part isn't it. But for those who don't know, my daughter is a professional ballet dancer, which means that I spent years going through that summer intensive experience that Mo has. And ballet, in terms of intensives and whatnot, they're not called intensives for nothing. You know, you have to audition to get into their programs. You are dancing all summer long. You get to perform at the end. So it's pretty hardcore. So it really is that Mo is being exposed to the seriousness of ballet because everybody else there already gets it. Her and Jamila are new to that. I mean, Jamila is a natural dancer, but she's still new to this whole like, oh, okay, you can go to this thing year round. And so that's really what it is, you know, is that this is just very, very foreign to her.
Okay. But I felt like Jamila was more accepting.
Yes.
Of it. And then Mo just kind of was like, I don't know. So like, and what I liked about Mo was Mo stood up for herself because I remember it was one scene with the bathroom. It was the bathroom schedule. And one of the, when the sweet mate
I love the bathroom schedule scene.
So when the sweet mate jumped the schedule, Mo was like, nah, we're not going to have all this. And Jamila's like, it's not that serious.
But you know what? It would be that serious, right? Because, you know, let's be real about the fact that also, you know, respect is still a very big thing in our community and in our culture. And for Mo, we sat down, we went through all this and we made a schedule. So for her, you skipped the schedule, you disrespected me.
Oh my gosh. So you have Rashida and Mo who are best friends. Everyone, even though they're within the same friend group, they have their one friend who they click with, and that's their ride or die. I feel like they all ride or die for each other, but these particular ones, Rolly and Simp, Tay and Jamila, and now you have Rashida and Mo. So you have Rashida who is home chilling, feels like the end of the world because her homegirl is gone, and now I got to spend the summer with Tay. But then
who is bossy,
who's very bossy. But then Rashida, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of memories are falling back because I'm starting to remember the dynamic she had with her mom and her aunt, which was another level of messy. So
of course it was. Yes, I mean, you know, living with her aunt who was very religious, very strict. And so, yeah, you know, leaving her behind, you know, she didn't have her distractions anymore from that. So she had to hang with her church friends.
Yes. And I thought it was very, I loved the scene in the end where Rashida finally opens up to the aunt and says, honestly, to me, she generally say, you do too much. And then Rashida's aunt realized she was basically trying to protect Rashida from being her mom. I felt like.
Yep. I would say that. I would say that. And it's definitely that low-key message of, you know, just like banned books, right? I don't want my kid to read it, so I'm going to keep it from everybody else. Over parenting, you know, trying to legislate their way to safety. And when does that ever work?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So it was very moving, but then I detect like the one thing I did automatically kind of detect is when Mo's brother slid in Rashida's DMs. And I was like, dude, you are not slick. Like I automatically like, this is not going to go down the right way. And when things did kind of go down the way that it did, it was like, I'm glad you put that in there because it kind of shows young ladies to be careful. Just how he knew exactly what to say to get her open, if that makes sense. Like he knew exactly what compliments to give her, because she, if I'm not mistaken, she wasn't very confident about her look. She wasn't really confident.
She wasn't, and I do want to be fair to Mo's brother in that he was not. The intent was not predatory or
You don't think? Okay,
no.
okay. Well, you're the author,
It, it was not predatory, and it was not meant to be harmful.
Okay.
He was slick because that's his sister's best friend.
Yeah.
You know, and in terms of how she would feel about that. But you know, in truth, he was genuine. He
Okay.
was genuine. But that situation, you know, that I put them in at the end of the book, I did that because, you know, I think while we would love to, we all need a hero, you know, when we're in a bad situation, but we have to remember they're all young.
Yeah.
And in the dynamic of the friendship, you know, they're all young. So yeah.
Oh my God. So, and then it was another scene that stood out for me from that book. And I'm trying to, because I normally go an hour and we got like 15 minutes. And I have one more book I want to discuss. But one scene that stuck out to me was when Rashida called her mom. And her mom immediately went off. I know her, your mama's not, your aunt's not calling for money. And I know she thinks she, like, and Rashida was just calling to just talk to her. Yeah. And the mom immediately popped off. And I was just like, she just wanted to talk. And you are automatically focusing on the drama of your relationship with your sister and not focusing on your daughter. And sadly, I have witnessed that. As a teacher, I've seen those dynamics.
Yeah.
So it was just crazy to me. So again, all of them follow in the sequence. Again, you can read them out of order, but I will definitely read So Done, which is the first, and then you got Doughboys, and then you got Turning Point, which I don't know why I thought Keeping It Real was a sequel to those three. And then when I started reading it, I was like, no, this is not a sequel. But when I say Keeping It, so Marigold first to me, I felt like if it wasn't for Justice, okay, let me go back a second. So you have Marigold and Justice who go to, was it a private school? It was a private school. They go to a private school, predominantly white private school, where it's not really a lot of them. To the point, Marigold shares some stories where she'll go to parties with these girls and they will make comments about her hair. They think for the longest that her father's a drug dealer. Because he has all this money. You possibly can't be Black and have a successful company. So
a multimedia company, like I mean, exactly. it's like BET.
So it's like it's no way possible. They think you're a scholarship kid. But what I like what your book exposed with Justice, how when you have a child that is there on scholarship, it's like you owe them something. Like there's a scene where Justice, he's on the basketball team. They're actually rising freshmen. They're about to go to high school, but they're on the basketball team, and he shares with the principal of the school, I'm going to this camp where Justice loves clothes. He loves styling and fashion. And the principal kind of looks at him like, why aren't you doing like playing ball and doing summer workouts? I'm just like, and like Justice shares his sentiment, how he feels like, it's like that's a hold over his head. He can't be completely who he wants to be because he's on scholarship. Yeah. And I never thought about that when it came to private schools.
And the reason you know that I really took that route is because private schools and athletes doing that are very much like the workforce. And unfortunately, you know, our workforce, our country was built on slavery. So our workforce is built on that same mentality where you work for somebody and they think they own your time. And they want to take every single sliver out of you. And that's what I wanted to project in the book, was that, you know, the principal or the dean of the school was saying to him, you need to be ready for the season. You going off doing some little internship. And that, you know, I wanted I wanted that to be reflected because Marigold, of course, until he said that, hadn't thought of it like that either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, even though she's experienced some of the things she's experienced, she was still in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like more as she worked. Because I remember at one time, I knew something was up with Kara from the get-go, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And because I remember emailing you when I finally got to that scene, like, oh my gosh, like what? So it was one of those things that she immediately felt like Kara was coming for her and had a problem with her. And she didn't, and I'm definitely not giving that away. Like that deserves you reading every ounce of that for y'all to learn what happens between her and Kara. So what happens is Kara and Marigold and Justice received this internship. Now, at first, Marigold wasn't even interested in it. But the older lady, was that like a grandmother?
She was like a play auntie. She had raised him, but they are not blood related.
Okay, got you. So she basically makes sure the home is right, cooks and whatnot. And she suggested to Marigold, so do you sit around all summer? Because I think she would normally have Marigold like volunteer at churches and whatnot.
Yes.
And Marigold was not feeling that. So she was like, well, why don't you do the thing, do the fashion design, be the fashion intern. And she was like, oh, because she herself likes to design. But for whatever reason, she didn't connect the two. Until her auntie said something to her, almost like a godmother. And
she goes to a private school where the kids summer, so she is used to, I mean, even though Miss Sadie makes her work over the summer at church, for the most part, she is used to being able to go on vacation with her friends.
Yeah. So it was just like, but I was surprised she never thought about asking her dad for the internship, given that, because I remember, didn't she have like designs in her room that she would keep up and she would draw?
She did. Yeah. But I mean, again, she is a product of two different worlds. And that was the crux of keeping it real, is the fact that she didn't feel like she belonged in either one. She's from a wealthy family, but they are rooted in her parents' old neighborhood where they grew up, which was a working class neighborhood. And just, how they've done the best they can to make sure that she's grounded in that. But nonetheless, she goes to this white school. Everybody's, some of them are legacies. So yeah, she's torn, so she is not thinking along the lines of working for the summer.
Yeah. And I loved it. So I loved, number one, if anyone is watching this or will be watching this from Richland 2, school district, where any school district, we definitely need fashion design in schools. I don't understand why it's not there. A matter of fact, I visited a school years ago. I think it's called Saluda Trails in Rock Hill, South Carolina. We were there for a school visit, and their fashion design class was responsible for creating the costumes for their plays. They had plays.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, once a semester, they had a huge play, and they were responsible for designing whatever the costumes were for the kids. And I was like, why isn't this everywhere? Like, the number of electives they had was crazy to me. And we have, I'll admit, especially on the high school level, a range of electives, but I feel like middle school can add a little bit more. But I am always surprised to see the kids and what they're able to do, and how I feel like we don't have enough electives to.
I agree. I mean, of course, they're cutting, music and art anyway. So we're asking for way too much on that one.
So I'm believing someone somewhere will get it. So it's just one of those things where that is one area. Now, one thing that has picked up is culinary. We definitely have the program there. We have cosmetology. I think that's never going to go away. We even, the school I taught at last year, we had a barbering program.
Okay.
But it was only offered at that school. So it was like one of those things that we can have. Like back in my day, we had a vocational school.
Yes. Your day is my day.
Yeah. And then you went to the vocational school in the afternoon or the evening or whatever. So keeping it real, I loved it. One thing that definitely, I think the whole Kara bomb it was just like, oh my gosh. So, and then like Marigold, what I like about Marigold, Justice really thinks that she does come off too privileged. But then Marigold shares more with the readers. No, I've dealt with some things that, I had to check people on. No, you can't say that about me, or this isn't correct. But it's definitely a page turner.
And it's also, we just have to be really careful. One of the reasons I wanted to dip into the, kind of the wealthy part of it is because I think that we do a fair degree of wealth bashing. It's like wealth bashing, or like when somebody has a college degree versus someone who doesn't. It's okay for that person to tease you. Well, you so smart, you the one with the degree, but I could never say the opposite. So I feel like we do that with wealth, with wealth bashing. You want to be able to say something negative because I come from a certain financial income bracket, or my parents do. But if I were to indicate that you didn't, we'd be knocking. So I wanted to kind of talk about, the two of them and the friction that it causes in their friendship, but at the same time pointing out that just because my parents may have this, it doesn't mean that I am without problems. So that's at the heart of it. Like I have issues too. They're just not the same issues that you have.
And that's what I love about it. Even it's just Justice. I really did love Justice, but what I loved about Justice too is just the dynamic of Justice. Like, he wasn't just a baller. He wanted more than just playing. And then, not saying anything is wrong with wanting basketball, but just
he had other interests.
He had other interests, and that is so, I think, prevalent that people need to see. Especially with our athletes, especially with our Black male athletes. Like, it's okay to be an athlete, but let's have something else going on. Whether it's you being part of a leadership committee or being part of some type of community service, is something where you are tapping in different sides of you. There is more to you than just a basketball.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned earlier, you have a new book coming out in September.
Yes.
So can you tell us about it?
The book is called Balancing Act. This is actually part of a series. It's 3 books at this point, but Balancing Act, all of my books take place in a fictional version of something. Annapolis, that's where So Done and Doughboys is a fictional version of Annapolis. Keeping It Real is a fictional version of DC. And so Balancing Act is a fictional version of Baltimore. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to really focus on hustle and grind culture, because, I think a lot of young people are really professionalizing early. Most sports now are like darn near year round, right? If you put your kid in AAU, that's all year. And football is the same way. So I wanted to focus on that. So, they are going to a brand new charter school that actually allows them to focus on it. So it has disciplines, and the disciplines that the book focuses on is basketball and gymnastics. So it is my version of Gossip Girl meets Sweet Valley High. It really is. And you have to read it to figure out what the Sweet Valley High connection is, but definitely Gossip Girl, because there is a anonymous person on this made up social media site that's like starting to dish out everybody's business. And so they're kind of like, how does this person know this? And so it's about the grind. It's about grind culture. It's about hustling for anything. It's about living in a city where rivalries are so serious that you need to be careful which side you choose, and what people will do to kind of get the bag.
Oh my gosh. So someone on Instagram chimed in and said, at the end of this, the Institute of Innovation, you're talking about the R2I2, which is in Richland too. That is not the same as a vocational school. Like those, like when I say vocational school, it was a separate school where you did carpentry, you learned how to fix cars, cosmetology was in that building. It was a separate building, and everyone from the school district could attend that particular school. The classes at R2I2 are more like elective classes, but they do have like culinary arts. I want to say they have a baking course. They even have is an engineering course. And in one of them, they were able to make prosthetics for people, robotic arms.
Oh, wow.
Able to donate to different organizations and whatnot. I remember one class they had it where they made these battery packs that were solar powered because I don't even know how they discovered this village, but it was a village somewhere in Africa. They said that they would have to take everyone's cell phone in the city to charge, and they built these solar powered panels that could charge phones from their home, so they wouldn't have to go in the city to charge their phones. I was like, oh my gosh. So but the only thing is kids have to make sure they have room in their schedule, make sure they stack their schedule heavy their freshman and their sophomore year, because you have to devote either the first half of your day there or the second half of your day there. So that is, Richland R2I2, which is here in Richland too. So it's one of those things where if you are a reader, I don't care if you're an adult reader, you're going to love Paula Chase's books. And I love the dynamics of it. I would recommend even parents, if you're guardians, to read these books with your kids so you can possibly see something maybe you are or are not doing. Like, I would love someone who maybe mirrors the relationship Rashida had with her mom to read that book and to see themselves and realize, like, I felt like Rashida's lack of confidence definitely was tied to her mom. Because if I'm not mistaken, her mom was supposed to come and get her and she never did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's definitely that sense of rejection there.
Yes. So it was like, my heart immediately went out to Rashida because I've taught girls like Rashida, and I definitely connect with girls like her where it's like, I just want my mama to see me and she doesn't see me and I don't understand why. So it is definitely something where any of the books, you can read them to your kids. Again, Doughboys, again, I feel like male or female can read all the books and get into them. But Doughboys, I definitely love the dynamic of that book and both the characters there. And just, it's nothing you can go wrong with a Paula Chase book. So I look forward to reading the book that's coming out in September. I'm definitely going to go back and read
So Not the Drama.
So Not the Drama. I'm going to go back and read that one because that was a big question mark in my head, because I don't feel like they really talked about they talked about the older sisters, but you didn't understand why the dad kind of talked about it.
Yeah.
Because when Jamila told him she wanted to move back with the aunts.
Yes.
And that's when they had a heart-to-heart. Eventually they had a heart-to-heart about what was going on with her. And
you got to give it to the dad, because he's like, I'm not going to send another one of my kids away.
Yes. So I love the daddy. Like he out of all the, between, I can't even say that because I love not Sim's mom, Rolly's mom.
Yeah.
Rolly's mom was really good.
And Monique's mom. Monique's mom was really good. She was a nurse.
Yeah, that is right. That is right. Because there was something going on in the house, and she was like, excuse me, I need y'all to get it. Y'all know I got to go to work. Like, I need y'all to stop tripping. So it was, and I think that was another thing where we assume when people live in certain neighborhoods that a strong parental figure is absent. And it's like,
we assume they're absent. We assume that the parent that is there doesn't work. I remember, like, when I really started writing these sets of books, probably as opposed to when I was writing my first set of books. And I had that epiphany that whenever they talk about our neighborhoods, they call them low income neighborhoods. When they talk about white ones, they call them working class. And I'm like, why do we do that? So, to make it very clear, this is a working class neighborhood.
Exactly. And then it's just like, it is one of those things where I've involved the parents where some of them, they did, like Monique's mom, she did work a lot. But when things had to get done, things got done. So, and it was just, again, I loved all of it. So again, make sure that if you are, put it up earlier, I'm going to put it up again. So if you want to follow Paula, she is on Instagram. She's on Threads. She has her website where you can access her books. What I love about her website, she links the different ways you can purchase her books, but also resources you can use in your classroom if you want to teach those books. These are definitely teachable novels. Like, I wish I had these novels when I was teaching, because I just definitely would have been from the pick. Because I was that teacher, I did not teach what was on the list all the time. I did teach Sharon Draper.
Okay.
My kids loved Sharon Draper, but if every now and again, if I can deviate from the list, I did. Because I felt like our list was very, yeah. So when we it was, and our kids were not that. So
yeah.
I greatly appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. For those of you who will be watching this in a replay, it will be up on Instagram and Facebook for at least 24 hours. And then I will take the video down, but it will be on YouTube forever. Let me show you some more stuff so y'all can see. Hold up, let me take down the banner. I'm still learning this. So again, you should be able to access this podcast with the next 24 hours. It'll also be on Apple Podcasts, Amazon. You see all the icons listed there. My next episode actually is a former classmate of mine. Well, I don't want to say classmate. I don't know if you graduated the same year as me, but we both went to Winter together. He calls himself the relationship enthusiast. And we're going to talk about dating in 2025. For those who don't know, I am single and I'm ready to mingle. I am. So we are definitely going to be, he's released relationship books. He actually has a podcast where he talks about relationships and whatnot. So I told him I would love you to come on and help us out. Because even though I do believe P is in the dating pool, I just feel like we need to just switch pools. Like, I feel like we should just, like, you have those resorts that have multiple different pools in the area. Maybe we just need to get out that pool and go to another one. Like, I think there's hope. I think someone is going to come and clean up the water. So I refuse to believe that it's not happening. I just can't. I'm too fine for me not. I mean, I don't know. So I just don't.
You speak it.
Trust me, I did. I'm claiming it. So we actually had a niece who just got married. She's 26, 27. So immediately the older ones who were like the aunties were like, well, you get married 2026, I'll get married 2027. Like, we just started like, nah, we not, it's gonna happen for us too. So so tune in. That is next Thursday. We will go live, and you will come in. And again, you can follow me on social media. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and have a good night.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.